Dakota Proclamation by Meredith Quinn, Musa. The lie in every thought. I'm in the white man's intellectual system, and as an Indian, knowing that he thinks singular, reasons in a comparative, and speaks in a duality, he believes it to be perfect. Why not give it to the whole world? So he wrote the Manifest Destiny, but by an old Indian equation system of multiple thought concepts. I can take each of the sciences of the white man and prove this to be a total lie. This lie encompasses and rules every language, race, religion, and nation in the world. How was this lie constructed? To begin with, let us reason from an Indian thought. Section titled, His Lie Made Him a Nomad. Not all white men are evil, so I will speak of a specific white man. Down through the ages in other geographic locations, he had been subdued from the pagan and savage state by the community law using either kings or dictators. It is the white man that escaped the control pattern, which was to keep him subdued, that interests me and should interest the world. What possible crime could he have committed that would banish him from his country, that even the dungeons of England, Scotland, France, Spain, Germany, and Italy were found to be useless? What evil did he commit that forced these nations to isolate him from outside contact with other people, having only one hope left, believing the earth to be flat, left him on our shores, hoping he would fall off the edge of the world? We, of course, had no knowledge of what was going on and hadn't been warned that just to be in his presence, because of his contamination in diseases alone, could wipe out millions of perfect genetic lives. When I think of this and listen to some of those white organizations that believe they are blue bloods, such as the Daughters of the American Revolution, Minutemen, Who's Who, Ku Klux Klan, 60 families that own 90% of the world's wealth, I can only conclude that this is how the white man brings royal families into existence. But what was the crime that brought the Ethiopians, Phoenicians, Egyptians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, and the Hebrew nations crashing and have long been desolate? Well, the specific white man is still around, and I would like to quote a passage from a book written by him, Mr. Earl Shorus, Death of the Great Spirit. Quote, "The suppression of the true history of America is one of the more exquisite works of human society. The suppressed information is easily available to every citizen, yet few are even aware of its existence." Unquote. But did you know it is the same suppression of true history that mankind cannot find his way back to two previous civilizations that were far advanced to this one? The Indians have said this time and time again, but nobody would listen. So he must watch the white man's way and works expand into obliteration, which need not happen, for many will suffer. All that is required is to back away from the destruct trigger mechanism of greed. So why should I and my savage Neolithic mind convert to the civilized mind of the white man just to move back 30,000 years from the advancement of mankind? Stop worrying. This is only an Indian writing, and they're considered to be absurd, backward, childlike, dumb, epidemic, faulty, godless, heathen, idolater, junk, kleptomania, lunatic, mongrel, neurotic, outcast, pagan, quitter, repulsive, savage, treacherous, unreasonable, vicious, weak, xanthous, yellow, zymptic. Many interpretations have been omitted. I'm sure that any one of you can find any three and list which you consider to be the image of the American Indians. Section titled, "The Lie is Kept a Truth." But let's get back to the construction of the total lie. First, let's start with suppression of the truth and replace it with assumption of a fact. Take any lie, teach the people to believe it, and then practice it, and it becomes an assumed fact. Let the real truth present itself, and it will conflict with the educational code of the teaching, believing, and practicing system of the assumed fact. Now, just to make sure the assumed facts have a foundation, establish them as truths. And to believe these truths are godlike or a godly state, any other facts in conflict with these truths to be the heathen or ungodly. So the only lawbreaker there is the ungodly. How are these laws brought to their precise place in this society? Most of them are taken from the English rule by royalty over common or peasant persons. The rest from need or experience of problem areas in communities. They are recorded or documented by historians, educators, and religious leaders who present these findings written from a viewpoint that are the wishes of the community, with the allegiance of the territory, within the framework at all levels of governments. Truth has nothing to do with it. When it becomes law, it is an area of law. If the educational system teaches the reason for this law, and it becomes part of community understanding, then it establishes itself as a fact. Law or fact has nothing to do with truth or justice. This law, which is now a fact, and when all other countries recognize these facts, it affects everything in these people's daily lives, such as education, languages, races, governments, ideologies, and religions. Truth and justice to these facts has still not been required to be a part of the prerequisite. Can you just picture a white Christian coming before the Creator and finding out that he never learned one single truth before death? Let's see Billy Graham, Rabbi Magunum, Bishop what's-his-name, Pope something or other, tell you the real truth and see if they dare to become ungodly like me. Section titled, Foundations for the Facts. Let's review some of these assumed facts that most people practice in their daily life. They will swear it's the truth on the Bible, which the local church will provide. Truth. The Indian won the wars. He did not know that a civilized act was to plunder the cultures and destroy the language. Fact. The Indian was a savage, roaming the hills and deserts, had to be conquered and civilized. Truth. An act of 1906 forbade the Indian from practicing his educational system. It was proven that the Indian was average to above that of Americans after learning English. Fact. The Indian had no educational system, had to be taught to read and write. Truth. The 4 leather parchments sitting in the British Museum contains the books of Numbers and Deuteronomy, written in Hebrew and the system of the Indian. They are considered to be over 4,000 years old. This makes them the oldest parts of the Bible on Christian belief in the world. They belong to the Indian, taken from Indian territories. Fact: the Indian was a savage. What better proof can there be when the white man shows a Bible covered with the skin of an Indian, done with the craftsmanship of the civilized white man, sitting in a museum near St. Regis Reserve in upper state New York? The Indian also prayed to the moon, sun, stars, etc. Truths: 3/7 of all food varieties used by the people came from the Indians. Fact: the white man borrowed these varieties from all over the world. Truth: 95% of all medical ingredients used in modern medicine comes from the Indians, including the aspirin. Fact: Indians only roamed the hills wild. By accident ate berries and wild roots, which healed him. Truth: the Constitution of the United States was patterned after the government of the Indian, with only honor missing. Fact: founding fathers created first perfect government. Truth: the top military leaders of this nation, educated at West Point, used the methods of Chief Joseph, an Indian, which helped this nation to defeat 3 of the greatest nations in world history. Fact: courage of the white man and his love for freedom made this country great. Truth: the Spaniards and the Dutch introduced scalping, and the Portuguese head shrinking to the Indian. Fact: scalping and head shrinking is part of Indian religion. This listing can continue into every science of the white man. These are facts, not the truth. Let's conclude on the first basic fact of what the manifest destiny is, and name the crime of the specific white man mentioned earlier in the chapter. This white man can take an absolute and make it a lie, then take a lie and make it the truth. This is why I wrote the Creed of the Indigenous, so that the true Indian will always remember that he is free from this lie. Let's see whose word will be the greatest when we meet the Creator. If God is truth, he would never condone the presence of a liar. Doesn't the white man's great book say, "You shall know the truth, and the knowledge of it shall set you free"?